Hello dear tea friends from around the world. I'm Stefan Erler, the founder of the Tea Masters blog and of the tea-masters.com tea boutique. I'm also a tea student for 20 years now, and I'm glad to bring you a new class. Today we are going to speak about a Qingxing Oolong from Alishan from the spring of 2022. It's a tea that is in my selection, and it's also the #1 tea in the sampler I selected for this class. I made a sampler for the tea classes of the fall semesters of 2022, and so we are starting with tea #1, which is this Qingxing Oolong from Qingxing in the Alishan area. It was picked in this spring. Now I forgot the exact date. I think it was end of April 2022. March, April. Yeah, and I've wanted to start this one in for this class because we did Qingxing last week from the same farmer, from the same area, and by using now Qingxing Oolong for high mountain Oolong, we really can do a nice comparison. Maybe we'll do this next week to compare Qingxing and Qingxing, but before we compare the two, I thought let's focus the class on Qingxing Oolong, what is it, and on Alishan. So Qingxing is a cultivar. It was not invented like Qingxing or Cui by Dr. Wu Zhengduo. However, Dr. Wu Zhengduo, who was the director of the Taiwan Research and Extension Station, as a Taiwanese research facility about tea, he did something. He analyzed the DNA of Qingxing Oolong and found out that it is very closely related, that its parent, so to speak, is a cultivar that we find in Fujian that is called Aijiao Oolong, which means also small foot Oolong. This cultivar in Fujian is found in an area close to Wuyi, but not inside the Wuyi area. And it is these are tea bushes that are planted very often on the banks of a river. And Aijiao, small foot, means they are rather shorter tea bushes, and I had the opportunity to try this Aijiao Oolong, and what I found interesting is that it does have not a muddy smell, but you have some smells from a river, very a bit more humid smells of earth that were quite present. And after noticing this very obvious characteristic with Aijiao Oolong, I realized then that when we have spent leaves of Qingxing Oolong, towards the end, when the aromas, the floral aromas are gone, towards the end, when it's almost a spent leaf, then Qingxing Oolong will also have a bit of this river taste. Difficult to find the words, but maybe you try to pay attention to when the leaves are almost spent, what is the taste that still remains. It will be actually related to Aijiao Oolong. What is also interesting about let's have a look at this tea is that, as I explained last week about the Qingxing has larger leaves than Qingxing Oolong, so therefore Qingxing Oolong will have smaller leaves. It's not very obvious when you look at high mountain Oolong leaves because high mountain oolongs, this one is quite huge, and when the leaves are open, they will appear quite large, because one of the characteristics of choosing a high mountain oolong is that thanks to the cool weather in the high mountains, and thanks also to the vibrant sunshine that we get in the mountains in the morning, the leaves are able to grow quite large. We can let them mature much more than we would with green tea. And at the same time, thanks to the afternoon clouds, fog that comes and brings humidity and coolness, the leaves don't become hard and old and mature. So farmers are able to let their Qingxing oolong leaves or even Jinshan oolong leaves mature much more in the high mountains than they would in lower elevations. And therefore they are able to grow much larger and harvest them at a later stage without compromising on quality and on freshness, because this freshness is very well preserved thanks to the climate in the high mountains. So this also explains why really the important aromas in high mountain oolongs are about freshness, about lightness, about really tender, light, floral scents that that are really harder to get in the lower altitudes on oolong, because it's the weather is hotter very fast. Unless then you make a green tea in the very early spring, but then green tea and oolongs are two different kinds of processes. And the major difference between these two processes is that during the drying of the leaves, green tea will be very quickly, you will very quickly stop the oxidation. And whereas for oolongs, you will wait a while before you stop the oxidation process, and in the meantime, during the drying of the leaves in the manufacture, you will bruise the leaves. You will kindly, softly change the sides of the leaves by making them turn around on themselves, and this will bruise the edges of the leaves very slightly and start some light oxidation on the sides of the leaves. And only after maybe 12 hours will you stop the oxidation process with a high temperature, a little bit like in then this is similar to green tea. But with oolong, what you do at the same time is that you will roll the leaves. Now, they used to be before by foot. You would do this by not on walking, by constantly pressing your feet against the sack of leaves to turn it into a bowl shape. Then there were machines that would do it, and nowadays this is done by a different machine that presses the leaves compactly together. Therefore, the leaf shape now is a little bit different. It's a little bit less round and it's much more pressed. Sometimes it can be long because of this. But these machines are more powerful and can handle more leaves at the same time. That's why they've made this change recently. Okay, let's go back to our cultivar Qingxing Oolong. What is it really good for, this this cultivar? This is, for me, the main cultivar for oolong tea in Taiwan. You find it in the Wenshan area to make baozong, lightly oxidized but also roasted baozong. This is really the major cultivar that produces the standard over there. You find it's even much more standard in the center of Taiwan, where Qingxing Oolong is also used first in the lower elevations like Lugu to make Dongding Oolong, which is then a very much roasted and bowl-shaped oolong. And you find it in the high mountains, where it is mostly used to make this type of bowl-shaped high mountain oolong with a very low oxidation level and barely any roasting. And this cultivar is used in the high mountains because as the name Qingxing Oolong is also another name sometimes used called Ruanzhe Oolong, which means soft stem oolong. And because of the soft stems, this tea tree is better suited for high altitudes, because in Taiwan around 1,500 meters it can snow in winter. Not every winter, but there are winters where it will snow on Alishan, on these plantations. It will almost snow definitely every year in the Alishan area. And therefore you need a tea tree that is very resistant to the frost, so that it won't die if it becomes so cold that it would freeze. And by being soft stem, having smaller leaves, the tree is this tea tree is better suited for this kind of harsh weather in the winter. Jinshuan Oolong is only used up to 1,200 meters to 1,300 meters maximum, because it's a little bit less well suited for this kind of cold weather. But Qingxing Oolong or Ruanzhe Oolong, soft stem Oolong, is really the tea tree that you find in high altitudes. And because recently red tea, the fully oxidized tea, is back in fashion, since these leaves, these trees are there in summer. Nowadays there are more and more farmers who turn their Qingxing Oolong leaves in Alishan and in the high mountains into red tea, because there is this market demand. In the past, when there was a stronger demand for oolong, even in summer, they would make lower grade oolong with it. I say lower grade because in summer the temperatures will be quite hot in the high mountain, and therefore less suitable to make these light tastes. But actually then this summer higher temperatures are more suitable to make red tea, and especially now that this type of tea is back in fashion. This year, by the way, I have added one red tea from Alishan, made from Qingxing Oolong. It's very, very fragrant. This will make you really aware of the potential of fragrance that are in this particular cultivar, Qingxing Oolong, and it's really very fine. So if you are interested in exploring Qingxing Oolong even more, you can add this tea to your order next time. What else can we say? what is well, of course, you can also find Qingxing Oolong nowadays in Vietnam, in Thailand, or even in Yunnan in China, because this, as I said anyway, at first Aja Oolong is a cultivar that came from the mainland. Actually, it mutated, so it's not exactly this is not Aja Oolong anymore. It has mutated by being planted in Taiwan, but now this Zhuanzi Oolong, this Qingxing Oolong, has been re-exported to other tea countries, again to make imitations, to make copies that are cheaper to make over there, and are very often resold under the brand Taiwan Oolongs, which is why it's important to have a trusted source. Let's turn a little bit more on the history, maybe not of Qingxing Oolong, but the history of high mountain Oolong in the Alishan area. Actually, it started in the 1980s, in the early 1980s, and there is a romantic story that I like. In 1970, actually, a farmer, not a tea farmer, just a regular farmer in Shenzhou, in the Alishan area, he married his daughter to a farmer named Lin, who came from the Songboling Mingjian area, which is the #1 producing area for tea in Taiwan. So the tea farmer marries the daughter of a farmer in Alishan. He gets to see his father-in-law, and the father-in-law has a lot of land, good potential, and something happens, and 10 years later he starts to plant a tea field in the Shenzhou area, and 2 years later, in 1982, he will harvest one of the first Qingxing Oolong in that area. At the time, they would harvest, they would plant Qingxing Oolong, Jinxuan, and some Wu cultivars. And he was not the only one in this time. Around that time, Tianzhen also was starting to make tea in Alishan, and they branded it quite well by saying, "Oh, this is." Really quite quickly, Tianzhen, of course, they are the masters of marketing, and this has become a very large, one of the largest tea chains in Taiwan, probably the largest tea chain in Taiwan, and so with their marketing flair, they advertise, "Oh, this is the best, highest oolong from Taiwan," but actually, in the very early times, when it was introduced on the market, it was at that time, 1980, people were drinking still a lot of roasted oolong. And when it was really introduced in the very first times in the tea houses in Taiwan, it was like, "Oh, by the way, we have this very strange tea, lightly oxidized from the high mountains. Let's have a try." And the response was so good that very quickly they changed this tune and said, "Oh, this is the best tea from Taiwan, and it is." And we are going to produce much more because we see that there's a lot of demand. Therefore, lots of farmers started to see, that this tea was popular, and were planting it. And one of them is this farmer from the Mingjian area who had married Miss Lin, also both Lin, in Shenzhou. Okay. Okay, now why are we going to drink this tea? I'm going to demonstrate now. Now it's a bit like last week, but I want to repeat all the reasons that make this tea really of very high quality. In the high mountains, the plantations are and the bushes are growing on the slopes of the mountains, and therefore it is very difficult to come with a machine. And anyway, in the high mountains, this tea is of such high quality that it's really worth it to use hand harvest to harvest these leaves. This reduces the places that the leaves are broken. Actually, the leaves are not touched; it's just the stem that is cut. And by cutting the stem with the hand, it really reduces the astringency of the leaves. The second reason why this is high quality, it is really the first harvest from the spring, after the tea trees had a lot of time to rest. It is, as I said, growing in the high altitude, so with this very good climate that preserves the freshness. It comes from Alishan, which is really the birthplace of the high mountain oolongs in Taiwan. So this is really the original, like if you want to drink the original oolong, then you go to Ui. This is the birthplace of the oolong process. But if you want to experience the really the original taste of high mountain oolong, actually the birthplace of high mountain oolongs in Taiwan is Alishan. So this is another very good reason to try this tea. And of course, this tea was selected because what I find so interesting and fascinating is that each day during the harvest, the weather conditions will be different. Also, of course, each farmer will manage his plantations a bit differently. Each plantation will have will face the sun a bit differently. Some are more north oriented, south, east or west oriented. So depending on which kind of slope you are, this will also produce a different taste. The altitude also is having an impact, and therefore between two batches of tea there will always be differences. And this batch I selected this spring, and therefore of course I selected the one I like the most. And therefore it is really a tea of very high quality, and I will show you now how to brew it well. The basic things: good water. We are going to use Gaiwan because it's the most neutral way to prepare it. Very important to well preheat your Gaiwan, even and especially the lid. For lightly oxidized oolongs, I recommend to use Celadon teacups. They enhance the freshness of the leaves. In terms of quantity, it's really up to your taste. Simply make one layer at the bottom of your Gaiwan. This is already enough. I feel you can put a bit less than with Qingxing, because this is a tea that has much more aftertaste. Okay, now I'm going to make the leaves dense. This is similar to Qingxing. Okay. And we can help them open up a bit more. And now we can wait that the leaves really unfold and open up in the Gaiwan. Now, how much leaves exactly you use depends on your taste. If you want to have a stronger taste, use a bit more leaves. If you want to, if you prefer it a bit lighter, if you're more in a thirst quenching mode, then use a bit less. But because Qingxing Oolong is a smaller leaf, it will concentrate more aromas in these leaves than Jinchuan that we saw last week. And the Qingxing is really a fascinating cultivar. And why is it so popular? Because it did not sacrifice the sense to the taste. It really has a very powerful, sweet and long aftertaste, but at the same time the aromas are very floral. They can be very, very refined. So it's not very often you have to, it's either or, but with this cultivar you have the best of both, and therefore it is really the top cultivar for high mountain oolongs and for many other processes in Taiwan, like Dongding Oolong or Wenshan Baozong. Okay. I did not use so many leaves, so I'm really able to make a long brew. The leaves are open up. Okay, let's empty the Gaiwan. From the color, we have something very similar to Jinchuan. I keep on talking about Jinchuan, so we really need to make a comparison of the two next week. See that the leaves have very well opened up. Excellent transparency, the color is really very fresh. And very, very smooth and sweet. The kind of more powerful taste and energy of the high mountain terroir of Alishan, and the fresh sweetness of spring. This now brings me back to the Alishan plantations in spring. It's almost perfume, very refined, delicious. Of course, this is a tea that you can brew several times. I've made videos about it in the past. You can also check those. But I think this rounds it up for today. And therefore, what I propose is next week we are going to talk about a comparison. I will show you how to compare two teas, so Jinchuan and Qingxing Oolong from Alishan. This is going to be interesting because it's from the very same farmer. The plantations are located really nearby, so in a very similar environment, the same soil, the same person who processed it, but two different cultivars. So this is going to help us to really better understand what makes each Jinchuan and Qingxing so special, and also continue to appreciate the taste of Alishan. Thank you very much for watching, and see you next week. Bye bye.